All right. Well, hello, everybody. I'd like to call to order the May 4th, 2022 Parks Commission meeting to order, starting with a roll call. My name is Ben Coronado, and I'm the Parks Commission Chair. And Louise Tiemann.
Here.
And Georgina Armstrong.
Here.
And Stephanie Lyle.
Here.
And then from the city, we have Parks Manager Matthew Keogh.
Present.
And Terry Garrison, Public Works Assistant.
Here.
And then I think we have a couple of guests joining us as well. Stace Gordon.
Hi.
And Les McCallum.
Hello.
Hello, Les. Hello, Stace. I believe you guys are both the new Parks Commissioners. Is that correct? Awesome.
That's fine. My understanding.
Nice to meet you and welcome. From my understanding, we do not have quorum then because they're not officially appointed. So we won't be providing any recommendations or anything formal, very much informational, I think, tonight. So bear with us. And
Quorum with four members attending.
4 of the 5?
Yeah.
Or 4 of the 7? Okay. Okay.
Yeah,
So
a quorum will always be the majority of the number of appointed. So you have 5 appointed, so a quorum would be 3 in this case.
Okay.
Oh, okay.
There we go. Stand corrected. So yes, we have quorum, but we'll go ahead and move on to the approval of the agenda from our last meeting for all those who were in attendance. I looked it over and I didn't see anything to update. It was very nicely written, and if there was a motion to approve it, I'll go ahead and entertain that.
I move. Go ahead, Georgina.
I'll second.
So I move that we accept the minutes as written.
And Georgina's a second.
Yes.
All in favor of approving the May or the April Parks Commission meetings, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All right. Any opposed? Nope. All right. Minutes approved. Okay. So do I need to make an approval, a motion to amend the agenda at all since it was a change out or anything like that, or is it?
Nope.
No? Okay. So, and if there's a motion to approve the agenda as written, I'll entertain that as well.
I'll make a motion to approve the agenda as written.
All right, and I'll second that. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Aye. All right. Any opposed? Nope. Okay. Agenda is approved. Old business item number 1 is Parks Appreciation Day. Kind of a debrief from the event that we hosted last month on Saturday. So we hosted 3 parks. We hosted Kenneth Lee Memorial, Veterans Memorial Park, where, was it Luis? You were the site supervisor on that one?
I was, yes, with
All right.
able help from Matthew at some point too.
Yep. Matthew made the rounds and was much appreciated, as did Stephanie in the early morning. Thank you. And then we had Georgina Armstrong at the Shaw Park, and then myself at Wilkinson Farm Park. And we also had some volunteers in Barb Carr kind of supervising in the gardens there at Wilkinson as well. Is there anything specifically anybody want to touch on? Georgina and Luis, I'm definitely interested in hearing how your days went and how you think it went. And
I think it went great, and we had a really good staff member working with us, Gonzo. He was fantastic. And it made a big difference in Shaw, just that 3-hour period, and it still looks good, you know. So there's just one thing I wanted to revisit, something that Will had brought up last time. And that was about the, could we revisit the adopt a park idea? I know that there was some concern with the union about jobs, but I have worked with a city before where there was a staff union, and we had some strong nonprofits working with the parks, and even including helping with grant writing and things like that. And so, and it just wasn't an issue. But since the since there's short staffing right now, I was just wondering if we could try it for a year, just to see how it would go. with the agreement of the staff, of course. I found that when we had this kind of a program, it was really great to get the public and the staff together, you know, sharing, partnering on a job like that. So I just thought this might be a good time to revisit that idea.
Yeah, I mean, I really like the idea and I think it's worthwhile as well. And, you know, when Matthew and I spoke last week, he had mentioned something of, you know, the potential of rolling out a pilot program, maybe not the full park layout, but, you know, focusing on 1 or 2 parks just to kind of, you know,
Yeah.
get the feet wet and seeing how that might, you know, look as a full rollout. But, you know, I think there's some potential there in exactly that and revisiting that.
Okay, great.
So, and then other than that, you know, decent turnout and the weather held up and
Yeah, it was a lovely day.
yeah.
Yeah, we got a lot done. Actually, you know, people really got busy. They didn't socialize too much. They just really got down on their knees and got going.
Right.
One guy didn't even want to get up for the photo with the mayor, you know. So no, once I'm down, you know.
Too much work to get back up. I'm good here.
Yeah. So it was fantastic.
Well, I'd say the same. Our group arrived, briefly discussed the plan and started working and kept working until the end. And they got every weed out of the planters around the parking area and everything in the strip that's between the sidewalk and the, you know, down the slope there to the flat part of the park. So it looked great, and it was ready for the staff to come back and do the next thing, you know, beauty bark or whatever, you know, without any more effort on their part, really. So very useful. They were very excited. All of the people that came to my park live right in that area of Veterans Park. So they are walkers of that park. And so they felt like they were helping to take care of a park that they enjoy. And that speaks to Georgina's Adopt a Park thing, that there are people who would happily chip in their time and talent to do light weeding and whatever else that's appropriate in the Adopt a Park world, you know, to do.
Yeah. Matthew, you good?
Thanks, Ben. I'm very excited if the commission has spoken, if I could share some pictures. That's always fun.
Yep.
And I have pictures to go on to the second part of the agenda too, but I'm going to share screen to get started.
I agree. You know, pretty hardworking volunteers, you know, pretty good turnouts and, you know, weren't scared to get dirty and do the hard work, which was really nice.
So ideally you have a picture up, Ben, that should look like a familiar group to you.
Yep.
Yeah,
I had the Rotary and the Henderson or Peninsula High School Key Club come out, which was a very large part of the volunteer group.
So this is the Wilkinson Farm group that came forward, and Ben is sporting a very bright orange vest. The mayor is actually present here as well, and she had her dog Lewis with her. Let me show you another picture or two, because the pictures do speak to what happened. This is Wilkinson Farm Park, historic Holly Farm, historic Holly Forest. You can see that the staff had done the cuttings, a large part of them. The volunteers came and took over and they cleared it out. So it was a great combination of seeing work that is done appropriately by staff and then by volunteers able to augment them, but not replace our staff, which use the heavy machinery, the mowers and so forth. Here's what we have from Shaw on the top right. And then on the bottom left from Veterans Memorial, you can search as hard as you can. I don't think you'll see a weed. And then finally, we just wanted to thank everyone. And so you can see some of the participation that went on at all 3 sites.
Fantastic. Yeah, I mean, the weather was, you know, pretty incredible and yeah, decent turnouts. And it was so great to work with city staff. There's so many great employees, you know, a new one, I worked with a new one this year as well. And I mean, I can't say enough at how great our employees are. It really is nice to have them, you know, working for our city. So,
Ben,
Yeah,
what a
it was
nice
great.
compliment.
That was great having Gonzo. I mean, he had a great sense of humor and he worked really hard too. So
yeah.
Ben, there's your superhero who was new to staff, Jesse, and he actually went right at it, didn't he?
Yes, he did.
But-
Yes, he did. He was like, oh, I'll have some downtime and pick this little patch. And I mean, we kept him busy where he didn't even get to that little patch loading that truck up. So
2 trucks worth. But Ben, that was nice of you to thank staff, the staff needs to thank you, the commissioners, volunteers. That's really what happened, is people on their own time came forward. And so we thank you.
yeah.
Yeah, but they also use their weekend that they wouldn't normally be doing on that Saturday morning to accommodate the sort of the community's desire to have a Parks Appreciation Day. So it goes around.
Okay, anything that you guys might pose as, potential changes? Was the 3 sites manageable? I mean, more next year, maybe, hopefully, and as this kind of evolves and comes back into full strength. I don't know.
Well, I think
3
we all acknowledged that it was uncertain for a very long time if the pandemic was going to let us pull this off or not, and last minute arrangements with PenMet and everything else. So, next time we'll advertise more broadly and sooner, so that there's, I think the banners at the parks themselves would be useful, to help attract the dog walkers who are walking by that want to help, but all of that. So I that's the only thing. And this year it was just, the post-pandemic hubbub over trying to figure out what we should do. So no complaints about what happened this year at all, but the more we can do advance notice and the banners in the parks type of thing, then the more volunteers we'll get.
Yeah.
and some people I think really are close to their own park. So actually adding more, that may not be a problem to get people because they'll gravitate to their own park.
Yeah, I agree. A lot of neighborhood, people who live in the neighborhood show up for that as well. And like Luis was mentioning, a lot of pride in the parks for the people who live within that neighborhood. So I agree that, adding additional parks might, not be as cumbersome as we think. So, and yes, Stephanie, thanks for showing up with all the treats, and Matthew. And so, yes, thank you, everybody.
Yeah, thank you.
Unless there's any additional shares on that, we'll go ahead and move on. Matthew, yeah.
Yeah, Ben, thanks. I mentioned the second part of the agenda. I don't know if everybody was paying attention, but I got to brag on the volunteers who came out on Earth Day. And again, if you'd indulge me, I have some pictures.
Yes, please.
I think it's important. Let me first say something first. We're looking for the right model, and I appreciate your comments and the drive of the commission to have adopt a park. We are moving forward, like Ben said, and we are still trying to find the right balance of how to work with our employees, as already referenced, and with volunteers. And Earth Day really was a special example, I think, of success, as well as Park Appreciation Day. We were able to find tasks that really made a lot of sense to everyone involved. Tasks that belong to, I don't want to say it's a citizen's job, but picking up litter will never end. It belongs to all of us. We all contribute. So that made a lot of sense, and pulling of ivy is something that our staff appreciates, is never going to be able to conquer on its own. So those kinds of things made a lot of sense. And I thought I'd highlight from Earth Day, we had several active groups present. They were mostly Rotary, but you'll also see some other volunteers. They were active on Donkey Creek Park and Crescent Creek Park. And then out of interest for the commission to know, there was a volunteer effort and they had their own waivers to be on private property, which is known as the Lions property, also known as phase 1 of our conservation area that we're working to acquire. So that's adjacent to Donkey Creek. And so some of the pictures, you don't know exactly where they are, but those are the 3 sites. So Lions property, Donkey Creek, and Crescent Creek. And I'll do this rather quickly, but I do have also the highlight yet to come after I show you these. I stay on the edge of your seat. All right, so hopefully you're seeing the ball rolling, I say, on this one. Here we have a volunteer working on the Lions property. And if I can just advance this. Oh, I went too far. Look at those young people. That was what I was waiting to show you. This happens to be a preschool from Nature by, it's the Greater, sorry, it's the Gig Harbor Greater Foundation. Sorry.
Yeah, it's Curious by Nature.
Curious by Nature. Thank you, Stephanie. I was like, I'm going to have a hard time getting the words out. But there they are. They did a fantastic job at the Talmon parking area. Talmon is a nature trail, and they happen to use it in their curriculum, and they use it regularly. So they consider this their park. And they came out on Earth Day during the week, and they did a fantastic job. I had some more pictures to show. Let's go back to Lions and see kinds of the amount of things that were actually pulled off just a riparian area that we want to see protected. There's our council member who was part of that charge. I think that was a fun picture to see Robin out there finding a part of a car. So you can imagine the amount of debris they found and gathered in the city was able to take and to dispose of correctly. So that's a good find. So there they are, the Curious by Nature preschoolers. They were inspired. You might have noticed there was a ninja look to one or two of them. I have a blank screen because I thought I'd show you what they saw, but I'm going to just end there with those two adorable young ones. We sent them a video of trash ninjas. And if this wasn't an official meeting, I would send it to all of you, or we would play it right now because it's really entertaining. And I'm really pleased to see how that activated their interest. And there they came out as ninjas to pick up trash. And I thought I was inspired, but it turns out it got them going. So that was a lot of fun. And Earth Day, like I said, I think was a success in those regards. I want to show you some more things that happened. This is Donkey Creek Park, where they were active pulling ivy. So this is a before picture. Maybe they're not quite in order, but there is an after at Donkey Creek. This is an after picture at Crested Creek, where this was covered with ivy. This is the before. So I'm sorry the pictures aren't in perfect order, but you get the idea between these two. We're looking essentially at the same area, and you can see what the volunteers were able to accomplish. And what they were doing in that area is actually meaningful probably to a lot of us, but as we prepare for a master plan for Crested Creek, this area is getting attention for environmental protection because it's very close to the creek. It's also getting attention for interpretive area and historic uses, including the original potentially historic sites of the Puyallup Indian tribe. So letting people get back here and see it and not be traipsing over what was really hard to get through, this is what was there before, is actually quite revealing and exciting for a parks professional like myself, and ideally for the whole community as we look at Crescent Creek. Now back at Talmon, that's where the preschoolers did their picking. And here's a Donkey Creek afterward picture that shows you how they cleared the ivy away from young trees and bushes that could get, and shrubs that could get strangled by ivy. And finally, the evidence of the hard work of staff where they come up with their trucks and they pick up after all of us and couldn't do without. So thanks to our staff as well. That's what I wanted to say about Earth Day.
It was great. Great.
Another great volunteer. We got so many great people in this community willing to donate their time. It's really fabulous. You know, it's, see people out there, you know, doing their part and, you know, showing how much pride they have in their community. And then if I'm not mistaken, is there another event coming up soon? The Gigging Up the Gig or something like that? Is that right around the corner? What day was that? Was that this weekend?
It's on May 14th, gigging up the, gigging up the, wait, how's that go? I'm bad on tongue twisted today. Gigging up the harbor.
Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah, that's actually from 9 till 1 on Saturday, the 14th. And there has been coordination with the city because we do try to support that with bark and other sort of supplies and assistance. I'm glad you asked though, because they came to me and cleared that they'd like to go to Ansich where there's weeds in the planters. I mean, we're always going to have weeds, but it's a great opportunity for people to say, I want to fix that. And as they walk the Harborview Trail, which is really sidewalk along the waterfront, there's a couple of different spots that I pointed out to them that we certainly will appreciate some of that help. So gigging up the harbor on the 14th is going to touch some of our waterfront parks.
Yeah, another great event. I think they're, I don't know, how many years have they been doing that event? Do you have any idea? I know they're probably a COVID hiatus, but they've been after that one for a while, I think, as well.
Yeah, it's quite a few years.
Yeah.
I know. Yeah, we have our volunteers come out and we do all the grounds around the museum and everything too that day. So,
Nice.
Yeah.
And who is that sponsor? Who's that sponsored by?
it's on Popcorn Alliance, pretty much.
Oh, is it? Okay.
Yeah. Mhm.
Nice. Anything else on related to that? No? Okay. Then we'll go on and move on to old business item number 2, the city council strategic plan, and kind of a background for developing our work program in the future for Stace and Les. The Parks Commission is in the midst of developing a work program to kind of outline, where our goals and visions are for, next 2 to 3 years, to more closely align with what city council's, aspirations are and what they view for the community. And so we can, hopefully incorporate some of that into our work program as, we, work on parks and provide recommendations to the council on acquisitions and development and, things like that. So, so this is to kind of give us a better idea of how what the discussions were during is this from their retreat? Is that correct? The strategic plan was developed out of their retreat?
Yeah, the strategic plan was developed, started as part of the retreat, and they worked on it over a couple of study sessions. So it was a lengthy process to get to it. But
Yeah, so a lot of time and has gone into this, and so it should definitely be considered as something into our work program and with the council's vision, seeing what we can do to collaborate with that. So I think is it Josh, you're going to kind of help us kind of weed through this a little bit and kind of develop some visions and ideas?
If you'd like, I can walk through it with you. Let me see if I can screen share it here. If you're ready for me to just jump into it.
Yeah, absolutely. Appreciate that.
Yeah, Mayor Markley volunteered me to walk you through it. How does that show up for everybody? Is that zoomed in enough, or there's a lot of text in a very small page? Yeah.
I wouldn't mind if you could maybe, because it's readable. It's readable.
Okay. Let me see if I can do a little bit more here. Yeah, we worked on this with council over a couple of study sessions, and I told them they had to get it all on one page, and the compromise is that it's on legal size paper. So yeah, so basically council met at the retreat and they came up with 5 different things that they really wanted to focus on. And we kind of distilled those, stretched them out, and made this chart out of it. The 5 goals that council came up with at the retreat are not the same as the 5 priorities that we have on this first column here. But these priorities kind of are the 5 main overarching kind of big picture things that council really wants to focus on over the next couple of years. So we've got foster a healthy city organization, which is really related to making the city a good place for employees to work, attracting people, retaining staff, making sure things are safe, that type of thing. The second one is ensuring a sustainable future for public services and facilities. This will intersect with parks a little bit because it's about making sure that we have the parks that we need, that they're fully funded, that we're implementing the plans we need to, like the PROS plan. So that's one that you guys may point to a little bit in your work plan. The second one probably as well, it's maintain small town character and historic preservation while growing responsibly. So that's a lot of that is about just what steps can council take to kind of maintain Gig Harbor's charm, the small town feel, and the historic elements that we have in the city. The fourth one is promoting environmental sustainability and preserving Gig Harbor's natural beauty. Again, that's one that you'll probably intersect with quite a bit. Climate change is really big on council's radar right now. We're going to be working on getting climate change infused into the city's comprehensive plan. That's going to be the first step. And then beyond that, we'll probably take a look at a climate action plan and actually even forming a full-time climate action committee. Another thing that you'll hear a lot about is the urban forest management plan that's underway right now. That all falls under this umbrella. The conservation parcels that the city is going after that we currently have purchase and sale agreements in place for, those fall under this. And then the last one is to promote and enhance a dynamic and robust business economy, looking for ways to support small businesses and even attract larger businesses to provide employment opportunities for people. So kind of those are the high level look at the 5 different categories that they have for the strategic plan. And from those, we've kind of distilled those down to actual actions that council wants to take over the next couple of years. I'll caveat those 2 action columns by saying these are not comprehensive, complete lists. These are calling out some of the more important things that council's is focused on, and maybe some of the things that maybe council in past years hasn't included. So on each of these action items, or on some of them, you'll see a little asterisk there. That means these are new items that weren't part of the 2022 budget that this new council, which started in January, has specifically wanted to bring on. So it's the strategic plan is a good way to call those out. And when we draft the 2023-2024 budget, we'll be looking at those a little more closely to make sure we've got the funding in place for those. And then the strategic plan doesn't really call out projects. So projects that are underway, major capital projects, things like the sports complex, you won't see that on there, even though they are a major part of what the city's doing. It's just the strategic plan is more about addressing philosophy of council and the direction council wants to go. So I know this was in your packet, and hopefully some of you had a chance to take a look at it and maybe saw some items on there that you think would be of interest to the Parks Commission or related to what you're hoping to do. I'm happy to answer any questions about what's on there or maybe what's not on there if you want to know, or I guess Ben, you can take the discussion.
I mean, if I have one right off the bat, can you tell us a little bit more about the Climate Action Committee and how that's being formulated? Or
yeah, that is a little bit of a more longer term goal. At our study session last week, we formed a climate action stakeholder group, which there was a little bit of confusion initially on whether that was the Climate Action Committee. But what staff is doing is they're creating a stakeholder group of people that are going to help come up with some climate related language for the comp plan. And then from that, that will kind of form an actual climate action plan, which is that first checkbox there. And then I think the goal is to have that climate and sustainability action plan really call out what the Climate Action Committee is going to be. So Climate Action Committee probably will be something really similar to the Parks Commission or the Arts Commission, probably its own body that meets regularly. But what exactly their responsibility is, that's something we probably won't formulate until after we come up with a couple of plans that give us a path forward there.
Is this list prioritized in any way? Like,
no, it's not. Yeah, I should make that clear. This is not prioritized, and it's also not something that I think council probably realistically expects that we're going to do everything on here. These are their priorities, but I think that that comes with the caveat that there may be limited money and limited staff time, and there's going to have to be some give and take, and some things will get done and some things will be pushed on to future years.
Absolutely. It looks like Matthew's got a question as well.
Yeah, thanks for letting me chime in and ask a question. And my question might go to Josh, so forgive the time it takes. But Josh, did you say, first, I hope everyone really knows Josh is our city clerk. I'm sorry we didn't introduce him. But nonetheless, Josh, did you say that there are 2 bodies forming, one an advisory board and then potentially a commission in the future? I have on my list today to share that with the commission and to talk about the advisory body. And I don't know if that's different than the kind of commission you're talking about.
Yeah, so the climate advisory body that we just formed is a staff-led body. So Katrina Knudsen, the community development director, she'll be the lead for that body. She's forming it herself. She's reaching out to the participants that she feels that she needs on there to develop a plan to get into the city's comprehensive plan. So I think she's reached out to stakeholders around the community. I don't know exactly who's on that. I've seen the list before, but I can't remember off the top of my head. It'll have a couple of council members on there. I'm thinking that she'll ask someone from the Parks Commission if she hasn't yet to be on there.
Yeah. Josh, I'm going to interrupt you because that is what I wanted to clarify, is that there is an advisory group working towards a comprehensive plan amendment. And I know we're sharing screens. I actually have their presentation. I don't need to show it now, but It does list some of the stakeholders already identified, such as the Pierce County Sustainability Resources. So it's going to be maybe a technical group talking about how to put it in the comp plan, but they did ask for Parks Commission representation. And the drum roll here is that they actually want to convene as early as next week, the first talk. It doesn't mean that a Parks Commissioner has to be present, but I am glad you brought up the advisory body because they're looking for a Parks Commission representative.
Yep, and that group will not be an OPMA group like this. It will just be a working committee, so they'll be a little more flexible on when they meet and what they discuss and how they parse out the duties of that group. So Katrina's working on that, and she'll formulate how that's going to roll out. And yeah, I don't know if she's expecting that for the Parks Commission to nominate someone at this, or if she's going to reach out individually to someone. I haven't had that.
At the risk of holding us up, I'm going to grab the screen, Josh, and share
Sure.
what I have.
Yeah, let me stop mine.
Things. This Zoom world is all about grabbing the screen. I hope that it's showing from our community development department what they're working to do to assemble a group. And you can see that it's got a wide range of participants to give some advice. And because I'm looking for a commissioner who's keenly interested in how it ties to a comprehensive plan, I think it's worth also showing that they do have a schedule. April 28th was a study session with council, as Josh was referring to, but you can see that on May 11th, they're even doing their first introductory session. So these are dates that are coming, and their goal is to work towards September when they would begin a council process to adopt an amendment. So yes, I have commission members shaking their heads and looking at it. That's important because we're looking for someone who would be available. It looks like twice in each month, essentially, to be available to listen in and maybe give some technical advice. I think you get the idea, but just this is where we are. The idea that they want to get it in the comprehensive plan, and they're aiming for September. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Yeah, that's awesome that they're working towards that. I think it's great that the city takes it as a priority. I think a lot of the members of the commission think that as well. I know this is, yeah, I know it's a hot one for a few of us. So
Yeah.
glad to see that. Happy to see that.
I do have a question though on this. Do we have any solar installations on any of the park buildings or in any of the parks? I don't think we do.
I'm gonna look to Terry because I think she knows our assets best.
No, none that I'm aware of.
Yeah, I know your guys' building does, and
Yeah.
and do you know like what size yours is, or like how much it produces, or anything like that off the top of your head?
Not right off the top of my head, but I can get that information for you.
Yeah, I was just curious. I know it's a sizable roof, and
Yeah, and Ben,
That's
for the
good
benefit
coverage.
of everyone, could we identify it's the museum, the harbor?
Yes.
Thank you.
All those
yeah.
big flat panels on top of the museum were a community solar project. So, and eventually they're going to need to get upgraded because the solar panels are so much more effective now than they were even in 2015 when those were put in. So we'll be looking at that in a few years for another update. But yeah, they actually offset a lot of power on the grid. So it's
Nice.
very good. Yeah. And I'm just thinking about picnic shelters and things like that that are out in the open. It would be a very logical thing to even run our lights at the parks with solar. We're doing that with the light pole that's in the parking area, the old Narrows Bridge light pole. And it's a single bulb. And I'm like, why are we running it to power when we can just run it off a solar panel? So
Yeah.
that's, yeah.
Well, some of the crossing lights and stuff like that are run off solar, aren't they?
Yep.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Okay.
Yeah.
I think
It's a
we got
good
the,
use of that technology.
yeah. Josh, can we hand it back to you for that list, unless there's any other?
Yeah, you want me to put that back up there for you?
Yeah.
Yeah, sure. Yeah. Anything else on there that you want me to talk about specifically? Or?
Mostly, well, I have a question on the develop the recycling program in city parks. Do we currently have that in some city parks? I've like the one at Ansich, the receptacle down there, it looks like it's set up for it, but we don't have recycling, right?
I don't know what the status is on that. I know that this objective has been in the city's budget for several years recurring, and I don't think we've ever had time to address it. I don't know if there's been any discussions. Matt may know more. It probably would be on the operations side of things, but I don't know if it's been up at the top of their work list this year or if it's just something we're keeping on there for now.
Thanks for asking, Josh. It is on the year's budget, as you just identified, and it is a council goal to have this running. So it does fall between operations and here in administration to make sure that we do it. Nobody can do it alone. The commission was aware that there was a nonprofit that was interested in talking to them. There are different models of how this could be done. And so I would say that we're exploring that, although that's not a great answer. I do want to give Terry a chance to weigh in if she's aware of anything in specific that we're doing about recycling at this time.
We've had some kind of trial projects at events, but it's very difficult, even if somebody's standing next to the container, that's clearly for recyclables of getting trash in it. And then everything just ends up having to be dumped. So we have tried it in a few parks, but we haven't been successful. But without a robust program or a volunteer group maybe to help with that, it's been tough.
Yeah.
There is a lot of education that goes along with that. I find myself staring at the Met Market 3 options and trying to figure out if where my compostable silverware should go versus my soup bowl. So it's understandable. I do think lots of people don't care, and it's a receptacle and they toss whatever they have in it. But there is also an education piece there to make it work. And it's just time and money to help people figure it out.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I know that's probably something that showed up on our work plan in previous years as well. And I'm just kind of like, is there, some new information or something that we're not aware of where that's going on? But yeah, still kind of seems like we're in the same issue as like education aspect of it and getting the, community buy-in with that as far as getting that to be, developed further beyond an idea. Okay, and then Josh, as far as like prioritizing the annexation of the parcels in the city's park system, did the council give any indication on that for the Crescent Creek? I know that's kind of been a work item for a few years for.
We've had, council's had a couple of study sessions in the past couple of months about annexing different properties into the city. They're working on an annexation study that they'll adopt. And I think that will address this. I don't know specifically where they're at. I think I did just hear that the Lighthouse property is now in the city's UGA or will soon be back in the city's UGA. So that will make that a little bit easier to annex. And then the other one is the Masonic Lodge part of the Crescent Creek Master Complex, if that's what it ends up being. But yeah, we're doing a larger annexation study, which I think these will be part of.
But you're not quite sure on the timeline of that?
No, I don't think there's any imminent plans to annex them yet.
Okay. Maybe Matthew could tell me, what's the benefit of having the Lighthouse in the UGA?
Great question, Ben. I think I would turn to some of you for that thought, but when UGA would indicate that the city plans to one day annex and one day be able to regulate and control that property more so than we can when it's not in our jurisdiction. It's owned by the city, but it's outside of city limits. So it ties us up a little bit. And you might say the Masonic Lodge is a little bit like that too. It falls under county zoning, county regulations. So when it's in the UGA, that's a step towards owning it, annexing, and then being part of the jurisdiction. I will say that it's a challenge for me to be new to the community or returning to the community and still see that it's a piece of public property that the public cannot fully get to unless they happen to have the privilege of a boat. So I'm just on my soapbox a little bit about public access. I'd like it to be in our jurisdiction and be able to do something about getting some kind of easement to get to that property, as controversial as that might sound.
Yeah.
Matthew, I don't think that's controversial at all. I grew up on Crescent Valley Drive and we used to walk down there all the time. And there was many, many, many years that we could walk right down to the sand spit.
Nice.
And it's only more recently that people have gotten possessive about the access to the spit. And I think it would be in the city's best interest to find a way to come to create an access point on land. So I would fully support that.
Thank you for speaking up, Stephanie. And I just want to briefly say, you're talking about a lot of subjects here, and I know Terry and I will take notes, but I think it's good as you hear things that resonate with you. And just as an example, for the Parks Commission, you might want to talk about as a priority in your work program, accessibility or easy access. And that would be something that you would be standing for. And then as much as staff can respond to you, I'd let you know what we're doing about those things. So I just like that you're hearing subjects in this meeting that are important and you're raising them, and that should get translated. And it makes a lot of sense to me. You're hearing about budget items like recycling. If that rings with you and you want to see it, it's something good to note in your work program that you want to be part of. So I think these are great examples.
Great.
I did have a question on the strategic plan in the projects section. There's a start item that says support funding for youth and teen activities. And I'm just kind of curious, what's the thinking behind that or the origin of that? And maybe if there's background. So.
Yeah, that one is one that's not been fleshed out at all, really, that I'm aware of. That item pretty much came about because council was looking at their other priorities, and they talked quite a bit about their priority to fund a senior center and senior center activities. That's really important to council. And as part of that discussion, council thought that they should also be funding youth and teen activities. I don't think we've really discussed anything concrete about what that would mean or what that would look like. Whether it be a youth center or youth programs or really anything, but it's something that council would like to look into. So I think that'll be a discussion down the road. But I, as far as I know, we haven't had any real conversations about what that means.
Right. Okay.
Matthew might have a lot more information on us.
Yeah, sorry to keep interjecting. I hope we let the commission take over with your discussion, but I gotta let you know two parts about answering that question. Josh would recall that there is an initiative among some council members to start a youth council. And that has been brought to my attention several times, and it gives me a chance to tell you that I had a conversation about it today with council member Likens. And Brenda Likens, as you know, was very interested, remains interested in the Parks Commission work that you're doing. So she'd be very interested in hearing about your interest, if you have it, in the teen initiative. Teen council might be her main focus. I can't speak for her. But I also wanted to then let you know that she regrets not being here. The council has adopted some new procedures, and we won't interrupt this agenda item to get into it, but Brenda will not be a liaison to the Parks Commission. We'll talk about that as needed. It's not an agenda item, but there's being a consistency effort at the city regarding its commissions, and to be sure that I become the liaison as a staff person, as opposed to an elected or a volunteer to relay information for you. So anyway, Brenda is a lead and you're welcome to talk to her, but she won't be able to attend these meetings with any regularity.
Great.
Just wanted to throw out an idea that obviously is just an idea, but I know we've been looking at Masonic Lodge and what its use or purpose could be when we do the master planning. And I'm wondering if there's any interest in looking into the possibility of putting on youth and teen activities there, just with all the other ideas we've thrown out, in the last meeting about the use of the Masonic Lodge.
Yeah, that sounds like a great idea, and great use of the building, and the interim until, I mean, that's almost something we could almost, impose immediately or develop, sooner rather than later, because, before, yeah, I think that's an awesome idea.
Okay.
There are many proposals for the use of that building.
Yeah.
Right.
We are extending the lease with the preschool there, which is occupying the only occupiable part of the building right now. So the rest of the building is not suitable for any activity or public at this time. So after we do the master plan and after we come up with what we're going to do to restore and repair that building, then we can talk about what it can be used for. But at this point, nothing's too imminent for the use of that building.
Do you know the length of the lease that was signed?
Yeah, it's for the next school year. It's the preschool that's in there, so that we just do it school year to school year for them.
Gotcha. And I see that there's, install Civic Center electric vehicle charging stations. Was there any talk of, the installation of electrical vehicle charging stations at any other facilities, such as the new Public Works building or the sports complex, or?
There has been and there will be. I don't think anything's been decided yet, but that'll be part of the climate action plan too.
So I guess then why was the Civic Center itself called out? Just because it is the Civic Center specifically?
That one's in there specifically because it's in this year's budget.
Gotcha.
So that's one that can happen this year because it's already been budgeted and planned for.
There is also one planned for the new operations center.
Oh, there is? Yeah. I think that's all the questions I got for you, Josh. I appreciate your time and helping us kind of go through this a little bit. Does anybody else have any questions? And I don't know, this is probably a lot of new information for especially Stace and Les. So, I mean, if you guys have any questions, feel free to type in, or if you need more information, contact Matthew or Josh or myself, and we'll be happy to try and get you any additional information that you might need or insight.
Yeah, absolutely. Reach out to me if you have anything you have questions about or want more information on.
Very good, thank you. Yeah.
I'm good, thank you.
All right.
I might ask Josh if he could take a minute to say a little bit more about work plans of the commission. It's great that we have our city clerk with us, and he's aware that commissions are working on work plans. Josh, if you might talk about how you see it. I don't know. We know that it will go to council. It will be something the council approves. They might only approve 1 year of a work program, and we might say we have a work plan with council and a program that's 3 years, just because the commission likes to think about 3 years down the road. But that's just some context maybe you could speak on for the commission's benefit.
Sure, yeah. The work plan can really be, whatever works for the commission for it to be. Yeah, as Matthew said, it needs to be approved by council, and it is also, your work plan is also going to be subject to the direction of the mayor, which is just a fancy way of saying that it needs to be something that staff can accommodate. The mayor's responsibility is to make sure that staff has the time to do what's being asked of them, and the mayor is the one who's ultimately responsible to make sure that we're not biting off more than we can chew and things are getting done. So that's the technical wording of how work plans are approved. They're approved by council and implemented by the mayor. A 3-year work plan, I don't think I've ever seen that, and I don't know how appropriate that would be, given that council really only does a 2-year strategic plan. So it might be a little difficult to line that up with council's vision when council hasn't really discussed their vision that far in advance. I guess having said that, we know there's things that we want to do in the next 3 years that the Parks Commission will be involved in. So I think there could be room for that, but yeah, it's just a fairly simple process. Just come up with a handful of things that you want to focus on, and then we'll get it before council, and council will approve it.
Okay, great. Switch that over there. Okay, well, assuming no other questions, Josh, thank you for, giving us the opportunity to kind of go through that with you, and appreciate, any additional insight that you were able to provide. Yeah, we look forward to kind of moving forward with that work plan and having something adopted or something recommended towards council, probably, near the end of summer or early fall, where we get new member participants, able to provide input on our work plan as well. So we look forward to that. Thank you.
Yep.
Okay, on to staff reports for the Gig Harbor Sports Complex update. I know there's continually changing situations, so there might be some new information that Matthew's able to provide us, or an update to last what you heard.
Oh, thanks, Ben. What I mostly want to communicate to everyone and make sure that you've had some awareness of is that we're doing an effort to better educate, or not better, to educate and be proactive with what the city is committed to doing and what the project entails. In that, we are having an open house, and I think most of you are aware of that, but this Saturday at the Civic Center, so that's the 7th of May from 11 to 1, we have a come and go kind of format for people to come and learn about the sports complex. They'll be able to ask any question they'd like, and we'll make sure all questions are documented. In fact, that's kind of the format of the event: questions and answers. The answers that we can give on the spot, we'll document. We actually have flip charts for this. So if you can visualize coming in throughout those 2 hours, we'll write down questions, and then people can see that answer and follow up on it if they're so inclined. But it is informational, and I wanted to really stress that. It's the theory, the process that staff can provide right now is let us hear your questions and let us address them as best we can. This is not a public house for visioning, and it's not with elected officials who make decisions. It's going to be run by myself, a senior engineer who's coming forward to help represent 1B, which is the city's lead project of the first phase of the sports complex. That a lot of you know that. That's Aaron Holst. So myself talking about the sports complex, Aaron Holst will speak about phase 1B. And then Jesse Palmer of the YMCA is going to give his time and come on Saturday to speak about phase 1A. And I don't ever mean to confuse people with letters and names, but phase 1 has 2 components, and one is being led with, it's on city property, but by a memorandum of understanding and a lease agreement. The Y will one, develop and then operate phase 1A, which is 2 artificial turf fields with lights. We are not, that project requires private fundraising. We asked the Y to come and speak and answer questions, but truthfully, their project is still in that fundraising phase, and they do not have designs to show. And I hope the public doesn't end up walking in and saying, I want all the details, because unfortunately, we're in a design process. And the best we can really do is speak about the steps that are coming, and if we can answer their questions, then when will we answer them, and when will there be more input allowed? So the essence of the open house on Saturday, again, informational, question and answer, and timelines. And I did mention probably to the commission, I know to Ben, if not to all of you, that I'd like to share with you some of the materials that we plan to show people, in part because you'll be the first to give me some reaction and some potential feedback, even though it's not on the spot expected. We do hope that these graphics evolve and they help the community. I join the commission in your job of helping the community follow projects and understand them. And when it comes to the sports complex, it has a long history. Some of you have dug into that and found that threading the needle, so to say, and finding the thread of public meetings is not an easy thing. And we want to do our best to show what has been considered and that the city is still open to and still working hard on meeting the needs and the desires of the community as expressed by council. So anyways, one of the graphics is the timelines. I think I'm going to start with the one that's a little easier on the eyes, because these are draft, by the way. But we're working hard inside to show a real professional face to this. This is an internal graphic. This is the timeline for Sports Complex Phase 1B. And you can see on the left-hand column, if it's big enough, I'm not sure, but there are different aspects of the project, and in a linear way, they cross the page. So in April, and it's really April of 2022, it would refer to the design contract that's been awarded to BCRA. And that did happen in April, and it happened in front of council. I'm not going through this graphic for you line by line, but this is what we want to show people, is that there are steps in the process ahead. And the steps include important things that have to be done in order to understand the cost, in order to be able to understand the right engineering, so that we can really talk about what it is that the city is going to do in a construction manner. When it comes to phase 1B, we're really talking about an active recreation piece. We're talking about a playground and an events plaza. We're talking about bocce ball and pickleball. This is not the artificial turf, which would have lights on it. But I just like to point out, when I think about these projects, the details are not known, including like even light standards and how much light might you cast, until the time that we've actually gotten to designing that. And you can see that design is actually very extended on 1B. You might be able to start it now, but it's going to take all the way through January for the design to emerge. And when you're done with the design, you're able to move into construction. So basically along this dark blue line is percentages of specificity. And in May, June, where we are right now, they will get us to about 20% specificity. Ultimately, when you get to the end of this, you're at 100%, and you've gone back and forth both with staff and the community, and sometimes with council, to look at the project and see how it's advancing. What's really important to show the public on Saturday is that there are 2 open houses planned. I don't think they're going to use the word open house, but feedback opportunities where they will present, probably in presentation format, live ideally. And there will be 2 of those. So there's one scheduled for June and one in September. I wish the dates were known, but at least we can communicate to the public that you can see that your input is falling while there's engineering designing going on, and your concerns can be raised. Ultimately, the project here on land use and permitting is advancing towards an idea of submitting something that is accountable to the permit process and to something called SEPA. I bet a lot of you know SEPA well. It's the State Environmental Protection Act. But in SEPA is another public process moment that I hope this graphic will better highlight, because it's meant to say this is when a project's impacts are fully studied by code requirement, not proactive decision to study something more than code. But SEPA does mean that environmental impacts particularly get studied, light, noise, traffic, so forth. And all public agencies have the right, and tribes to comment, and any public citizen to comment and to suggest that the impacts of the project need more review, or they're incorrect if the city has decided that it is mitigatable, meaning it's something that's, I may be speaking too much here, but just let you know, we go through a process of what are you doing to mitigate, and is this acceptable? And public citizens and agencies will all get a chance to weigh in during SEPA. That all happens before we get to advertising the project and constructing the project. Ultimately, you can see 1B is estimated to be done by the end of 2023. For those of you tracking 1A, there is almost a year difference because of their fundraising efforts. They were delayed during COVID, but their requirement by city agreement is to be done with those 2 artificial turf fields by the end of 2024. We have that as a committed date. So this graphic doesn't speak to 1A. This is really the city's timeline. That's what we're responsible to show and really want the public to follow. And I really have confidence in the Y to do a good job of explaining their development process. And we will always assert not only SEPA, but opportunities for the council and therefore the community to track that design as it emerges. I have one more graphic to show you. This one's very busy, I suspect. I'll see if I can get the boxes to clear. This is the timeline that I was referencing, which is to go forward tomorrow, Saturday. This is under development still. But what we're trying to show here in this graphic is that we have concurrent processes that have been going on for quite some time. I'm labeling it formations. Really, they're processes, but that's an ugly word. Formations might help us think about recreation a little bit, but we've been doing things like land assembly. That's the second line. We've been doing master planning with different aspects of this project over time, and these things have overlapped each other. So as busy as this graphic is, we are going to have a very large print up of it and ideally less text. But it is trying to communicate that there have been multiple processes going on and overlapping with each other. And it is, I hate overusing the word, but you could call it iterative. Like a partnership emerges and it changed a little bit of what you could do for land assembly when the Y came forward and when the Sportsman Club was asked to help with a master planning development. That kind of partnership and then fundraising has evolved and it has influenced master planning. And instead of drawing lines to everything, we're hoping that this graphic, which will be a take-home graphic for all attendees, that they'll be able to see some of the connections and the overlap between all of these different aspects. What this graphic ultimately does is gives an accounting of where we are now in these different areas. And then what I think is most important, and I think it needs to be a little clearer, but a list of goals on the right. What are we working towards? Where is the balls, kind of the theory here? Where is it going? So under early development, we can say early development goal is to have phase 1 opening at the end of 2024. That again is the date of the YMCA having to have 1A complete. Ideally 1A will emerge together, but we're on task to do it before the end of 2023. Another goal under land assembly, a coordinated site development for the sports complex. That's pretty obvious, but yet it's a really hefty goal to coordinate 9 different parcels. I think it's 27 acres of land, some developed at different times with different stormwater controls. We really want to have a coordinated site development. So that's a great goal. And as an example, the blue box, probably too hard to read there, but under present, is that we're surveying all the parcels of the sports complex. And we're looking to develop it as one site in a responsible manner, as opposed to 9 different sites and that are not cohesive. So there is an effort underway right now to survey the whole site and to do something called a single site plan. It doesn't mean all the details are done. It just allows the sports complex to be considered one project. Anyway, I won't go further because you don't get the benefit of the details in front of you. I can tell the screen's too small. But I hope you can follow a little bit of where we're going and how we're trying to explain the different aspects of this complex project. I think it's meaningful to show the section called budget and authorization. It's in orange. It doesn't show a lot right now, but I'm hoping to populate this just a little bit more to show that we work through council for authorization to do what we can do. And that's a really important aspect of the messaging to people, that council right now is the audience regarding the sports complex. They have signed agreements, they have signed contracts, some of which are represented on this graphic. And council would have to authorize any changes to the sports complex too. So I wouldn't call that quite a control, but it's a little bit of the reality. The final line, yellow, preliminary design and sports complex development. The goal being careful development of the Gig Harbor Sports Complex. And I like ending with that goal. So maybe that's a lot to digest. Sorry to go on.
So what role, if any, do you want us to play to participate in that?
Thanks, Louise, for asking. This has been approached on Saturday anyways, and that's what I'm talking about at the moment, Saturday, as an informational only from staff. So the commission doesn't have a role really per se in that event. But the idea of helping communicate what's going on at the sports complex and where things are, I think that very much falls into your array or your what we appreciate from you. I want to clearly state, like I started to indicate, there is discussion at the council level. There are things coming to the council, including a petition, but that information is going to the council, and the council has to decide if it's going to be an action item, something that they're going to respond to. All correspondence on the petition, for example, goes to the council. And so in this very simple way, it does represent our work program kind of mantra. It's a council item. It's council. The petition was addressed to the council. This was for more impact study. And if the council then holds that, they have to give it to the Parks Commission for you to have an authorized or expected role on something that's in front of them. So we do stand by to see if the council asks you to study an aspect more of the sports complex. The Parks Commission can ask questions and can initiate some studies, but when it's an item that's in front of council, then we have to wait for their direction.
Okay.
And on the previous slide, with the informational open houses, were those intended to align with like the 30% and the 60% reviews?
Yes, thanks for asking that. I was just thinking about reopening that for you. It's at the bottom of that screen, but it's hard to read. So the first one is certainly at the 15 to 20%. It's very early in the process. That's why it's as soon as next month. What they're showing on this graphic in September would largely be just to have a chance to see that your comments were addressed. I would say that at that point, it's already at 35% or so, and that would not be a time really for your typical the feedback as much as just comments for the record.
Gotcha. Okay. So ideally, the first one would be the opportunity to give design review opinions or comments.
Yeah, I know that the consultant will bring different examples of materials and different ways to show how you could accomplish what is in the master plan for 1B. And if you weren't familiar with that, that graphic will be present. I can call that up for everybody, but it's just let you know, there are elements already in an adopted plan for 1B, and they will ask the public like, well, do you think the solar panel actually has come up? Is there a place for solar panels? And does it belong on the event lawn pavilion that's planned or the picnic shelter? They will ask for different styles and sizes and input on how best to do certain aspects of the master plan. They'll have voting on preferred elements, but they will not be investigating new uses. Master planning is where you determine your uses. And so there has been some suggestion of, well, could the 1B change and could it have some stand of trees or could it have volleyball courts? Those are valid questions, but the staff is going to be presenting its work to implement the master plan, which has grant funding and council authorization at this time to move forward with set elements. So I would just say, like, unless council says we're going to pull the master plan back from 1B, it's more on the implementation ideas you have of the master plan. They'll take input like that's, we don't want to, it could be this playground that was envisioned looks very, I don't know, I don't want to put words in mouths, but it could look to some people like it's not environmentally friendly, and maybe there could be more of a nature play element. That would be appropriate because it would still be the element, the playground that we've committed to, but it would be the public's way of suggesting what kind of playground and what potential theme could be shown. I think they're really going to look for that. They're going to want to know what would make this a special community destination. Do you think that we need to have something like we have at Crescent Creek? We have some gig harbor centric design elements like the boat, as you probably know, in the middle of the playground. They will ask that kind of question. How do we make this your communities? And ideally, the community of Gig Harbor entirely, but also Gig Harbor North, will really feel like they can come forward and make this their community park. As well pointed out previously, the north end of our city does not have significant parks. And this first phase is really important to deliver to the community, a 7-acre active, sorry, this is not 7 acre. This is about a 2-acre active community park aspect.
It looks great. I mean, a good start, and I mean, outlines the timeline really well, and what it looks like going forward, and the future timeline. So that's certainly appreciated from my aspect. To give us a better idea of where we're going in the expected timeline. So thank you for that.
Thanks for pointing that out. I didn't really highlight that there was a future timeline with the years ahead. Probably hard to read here, but again, a way to show the public that this is what the city is intending to do until directed any otherwise.
I think it's also good because when someone is kind of kibitzing that there's no progress, right? That nothing is happening. That this is a good way to show, gosh, stuff has been happening since 2013. And people don't know what the process is. We aren't even all that clear on what the process is. And so I think this kind of thing is helpful to kind of bolster the city's case that it's progressing. And there was a pandemic in the way, right? That did have an impact on progress and fundraising and all of those things.
Certainly. Great. So, and then just in the terms of Parks Commissioners attending, obviously you're more than welcome. Be careful of the quorum issues if you all decide to show up at the same time. Yeah, that looks great, Matthew. Thank you so much. I'm sure the public and community will appreciate, additional information, and I think the city's doing a good job in doing, additional outreach to make sure the public's informed and involved in the process. So.
And these graphics are a lot of work, and all the planning that goes into it, and what you want to say and how you want to say it, and it takes 10% of the time to decide what you're going to do and 90% of the time to do the presentation. So thank you for all your effort on that.
Yeah, thank you, Louise. These graphics, once resolved and ideally meeting needs, they'll be available for commissioners if you were so inclined. They'll be available for public meetings and for people to borrow them. I can't promise that staff can get on the road and make presentations, but the intention is that these boards are going to be hung in places that matter to people and they can see and track process. I think the screen's showing right now something I didn't point out about the future timeline. I just really like to drive home this point. Phase 2, phase 3 are listed down below, and they're trying to communicate, and this is a big part of the job, it's not yet authorized to do these things. And when it comes to phase 3, which is a 7-acre parcel, the original 7-acre parcel of the sports complex, there is no design, there's no permitting, there's no construction authorized. And a lot of people are very concerned for potentially saying that may not be necessary phase 3. And maybe the aspect of the wooded property that it is needs to be reconsidered. A master plan just lays out what uses would be appropriate if it developed as a sports complex. There is no authorization to even design phase 3.
Gotcha. Interesting. Okay.
Yeah, I think it's important messaging, and I hope talking points emerge for all of us, and it might be something we work on as a commission, how to talk about our park projects. Not that I'm going to tell you how to talk about them, but as Luis was just saying, it's been hard to track. It's been hard to say when things are happening and not happening, and you should defer to staff, but on the other hand, it also should be very evident to the public.
So I know with the Ansich construction and development, they had its own, link inside the city's website. Is that something that this currently has or plans to have, or?
Yes, the sports complex does have its own page within the city's webpage, and an effort has been made recently to improve it. It was lacking. I just point it straight out and admit it. But one of the recent efforts was to put the graphics of the master plans online, and they're downloadable. So with that said, the webpage is getting better, and it includes a notify me option now. So anybody who wants updates on the project and news flashes, they can subscribe. And that's something we've been doing with the comments that we're receiving, is asking if we can take the email name and go ahead and put them in our notice list. So we have an active subscription to the sports complex. Nice. The webpage is a good resource, but it's not quite enough. We have to tie it to social media. We have to have things that link back to it. And the subscription service is one of the newer features that's kind of in that goal.
Nice.
So I think these charts are very impressive, and I think they will give the public a lot more details that they haven't had in the past. Ben touched on the quorum. I know that the council had that going back and forth too in their discussions, that can't have a quorum in the room at the same time. So we to talk about that now for the Parks Commission, for those of us who want to attend, and how does that work? I mean, we're not going to actually have a discussion when we're in there. So, but I know the council has been very concerned, and I think a couple of them won't be there because they can't figure out how to do that. So what's the update for us?
I went ahead and let Josh speak. I see he's there with his hand up.
Yeah, I would not worry too much about it as the Parks Commission. This is not part of your purview right now, so it's not really Parks Commission business. Just, you know, if there are 3 or 4 of you together, don't start talking about other Parks Commission matters, but otherwise you should be fine.
Okay, thanks.
I think once the slides are completed and the timeline, is presented, I think it might be worthwhile to have that included on the city's website page for the sports complex. Just kind of help outline the timeframes and stuff like that for more information, in my opinion. Depending on how much information you're looking to put on there. But yeah, so the subscription service one is a new thing that will be pushing out information. Is that just as is updates, or monthly or weekly?
Great question. Then we are still trying to determine just how proactive we can be. Josh could speak to the technicality of it, but essentially it's meant to be news briefs that people get. I think what I'd like to do is find a way to really incorporate our social media so that they become news briefs. I don't want to reinvent and have multiple wheels going, but we do want to do social media pushes and let people know about like the upcoming 2 open houses for phase 1B. Those will be news flashes, I'm certain, but anytime we want to say something to the public, it'd be nice if it could touch back to notice to those people who subscribe for notice.
Yeah. And then as part of the meeting, I hope you do emphasize the upcoming open houses as well, and let people know, hey, this is coming, and look for this in, was it September, and then what was the other one?
The first one is suggested in June.
Okay, yeah.
September was the second, right? And
yeah,
thank you, Ben. That's really good input to hear from you and from anyone on the commission. Some things that you'd like us to take into consideration as we work with the public.
Yeah. Great. I think it's great, and I think the community will appreciate additional information and see really how much time has been spent on the sports complex, and how long we have been working on it as a community. So
I'd like to point out that members of the public will want to give comment during the open house, and they will be allowed to, and that comment will be gathered and given to the city council. That's appropriate, and I'm pleased to have that kind of discipline in mind. There is a reality, though, that as a Parks Commission, anyone can come to your meetings and comment, and some people will come likely to your next meeting and say, I want to give my comments to the Parks Commission. So we still have to set your agenda for the next month. We've been talking about how we can do a better review of that together as a whole group. But in setting your agenda, if it's not on the agenda, and really council hasn't authorized you to have it on the agenda, you can probably anticipate people coming to give comment to you. And it just, thank you for letting the commission know how you feel. This is an item that's going directly to council. You don't even have to say that. It's just to let you know, to anticipate it. And people will probably ask you as commissioners, well, are you going to be talking about it? Are you going to process the open house? And you can let them know that the open house will be reported to the commission from staff for certain. And questions can be asked, and you commissioners can raise them and can ask to hear, to consider things that you've heard.
great, absolutely. Okay, any other questions on the sports complex update? And just to recap, that's on this Saturday from 11 to 1, is that?
Correct.
Perfect. And so is that going to be like, I mean, you said stop and go type deal, so is there going to be, you're going to be kind of repeating the presentation?
There's no presentation. There's just
Okay.
running questions and answers kept on the wall. Like I'm gonna have these big tabs that keep track. But yeah, there's not a presentation aspect to it.
Okay. Okay.
Whatever questions and answers come up with will become a running log, and we'll keep that also accessible on the website so that there's nobody getting one piece of information, somebody else not getting it.
Gotcha. Great. Okay. Yeah. Unless anybody else, we're gonna move on to the Parks Update Report, which Matthew, tap you again.
Yeah, I'll try to not go over the whole project list. I've taken a lot of your time. You do have in your packets the standard project updates, and I thank Terry very much for doing that for you. I will point out that to start, the next council meeting, the 9th of May, is when we will see the appointment of 2 new commissioners. And we're really pleased that they were able, Les and Stace, to join us as visitors today. But that happens on the 9th, and Ben also won reappointment. So that's exciting, and we'll have to find a way to really do some introductions probably in June and do a job of really understanding how to get started on our work program as a full commission. That'll be exciting. I would point out that also on the 9th, for those interested in knowing, the Masonic Lodge lease is going forward for council approval. And Josh did reference that they have it for the school year, but they were given notice that we are studying the Masonic Lodge use. And that was one of those kind of moments in time to say, we can't promise that this is an ongoing lease. They were gracious to know that we were ready to renew and not change the rate of rent. But they did get the notice that come the end of May, we'll begin month-to-month rentals of the Masonic Lodge preschool. The school's not active in the months of June, July, and August, really. And we used to prorate their rent during those months, but I don't want to have them pay anything with the idea that maybe they won't be coming back the next spring. I mean, the next fall, September of 23. So with that said, I'm not at all thinking their lease is over. I just don't, we'll just have to go to month since we're doing a concurrent study of the Masonic Lodge. Looks like somebody raised their hand.
I did. So would the city give any assistance to the daycare center to relocate them?
It's a great question, Georgina. Sometimes you have projects that have public funds in them that do require relocation. I don't think this would be one because this is a leasee that's operating under the rights guaranteed under the lease, and the lease has been very clear that it can be terminated when the term is over. So I don't think relocation is required, but it could be a council conversation.
Okay.
I also would point out that at the council meeting on the 9th, there's going to be a presentation from a representative. It sounds like an academic presentation, but it really is on behalf of Pierce County. They have a sustainability group that is coming forward to talk about urban wildfire. And there is a presentation that I believe is actually already online. So if you have that interest or you know people who would be interested, they could even preview the PDF through the city's webpage. But there will be a presentation to council next Monday on that. This weekend, you heard about the open house. Well, I'm excited. Saturday's going to be fun because I get to go from the open house, and I mean this. I'm looking forward to going down to Ansich because from 2 to 3:30, we're having an orientation of the kayak storage facility. So that's really directed towards those people who won the lottery. If you remember, we had a lottery for the limited slots we had. They want to come and see the facility, see how it works. But of course, the commission's invited if you were keen to see it. I will be there on Saturday answering people's questions and showing them how the security system generally works. Every individual rentee will have their own access code. I may have told you that before, but this is a novel and new thing for us at the city. And I have to say, from my park experience, it's pretty exciting to me to be able to give something like this, to do something like this, to store your kayak so that you can have immediate access to the paddler stock. It's a special opportunity. We have a lot of seniors, particularly, who are grateful for this because the loading and unloading of the boat has been prohibitive for getting to a paddler stock. So this is down at the water, not quite water level, but at the lower level in the building, which is accessible, ADA accessible. And people will come on Saturday for orientation. Again, that's from 2 to 3:30. On May 10th, which is Tuesday, we're doing a second orientation session. And you don't need to know that, but I'd be happy to get you more details. That is the day that the public then has those renters to have access. So we're going to start seeing private renters bringing their kayaks and their paddle boards into the facility on May 10th, which is next Tuesday. So Anchorage is coming alive, which I think is the bottom line of what I want to let you know. You probably were aware that the Paddlers Cup was active and they were still basing out of Scansea, but of course, the clubs, all of their regular boats are stored now at Anchorage, not in the racks out at Annecy. There's less trampling of Scansea's grass area because there's no big club activities there. Paddlers Cup was intensive. I think all of us need to watch out for the protection of Scansea historic property. But anyway, the Anchorage property is becoming more and more the focus of the race team. And I think that's appropriate.
There was lots of good buzz at Paddlers Cup about the private people getting their rental slots over there. Quite a few of them were winners in the lottery and were super happy about it, both from the sprint day on Saturday and from the Dragon Boat group who have their own boats. So super exciting for me to see this coming together. It's just thrilling.
Could we pause and see if Luis would comment a little bit more on Paddlers Cup and how either whatever you'd like to say, Luis, about how important it is and or how you thought it went? I know Luis is very active in that. In fact, I got to hear her as an excellent MC during the event. Luis, you might be on mute.
Hold on. No, I'm not on mute, but I was having to move. And if we get interrupted, I apologize. This whole meeting, I have been waiting in the waiting room of the cardiac lab at St. Joe's while my husband gets through some procedures in the cardiac ER. So I may have to jump off. But so the Paddlers Cup was a huge success. We had a great day on Saturday with the sprint racing. There were 91 boats launching in the mass start of the 10K, and it was awesome, right? That's a lot of boats in the, we call it the pond, you know, between the dock and the net shed. And they took off with quite a bang, super fun. And then the Dragon Boat Day, I don't know. Do you know what the estimate was of how many people were in the park? I counted at some point, and it was a little north of 400, and I knew I couldn't see everybody. So, I mean, there could have been 500 plus people in the park on Dragon Boat Day, and it was super fun. That is a great community event. I don't remember how the city did on its boat, but good competition all around. A lot of fun was had. The weather gods obliged us for the umpteenth time that it was a beautiful day. So, and Matthew, the park does grow back every year. We always, for all of these big events at the park, and so do the movies in the park do the same thing. The grass gets pretty beaten down and you think, oh my God, you take all the tents away and it looks terrible. And a week from now in this weather, it will be back to normal.
Great, thanks.
Luis, did you witness our next Olympian?
Maybe. There is a super fast boy, and he is a 17-year-old, went to the US trials and got gold against paddlers much older than him. So he qualified for senior worlds, not junior worlds. He is also going to go to junior worlds for the competitive experience. But this kid named Josh Eckert was flying, and it's maybe, you know, who knows? We'll see how he does in Europe this summer against. the average age of men at Senior Worlds who medal is 27 and 28. And it's a big difference between a 27, 28-year-old man and a 17-year-old. But as our gold medalist did in the women's group, age is not always the predictor. So we'll see.
Nice.
But he's got his eye on the prize. If he can medal at all at Senior Worlds, then he's automatically eligible for an Olympic slot.
Oh, cool.
Wow.
Awesome.
The-
Sounds like a
the
great
Olympic-
event happened.
Yeah, the Olympic schedule is all weird now because of the delay from the pandemic. So there's this very short window because the next summer games isn't 2024. So they are training frantically for that.
Nice.
Ben, I'll speak up and try to wrap up. A really important project underway to the community and certainly to the city is the North Creek Salmon Heritage Conservation Area. We're going to learn a better acronym soon enough. But I want the commission to hear that we're working hard on the real estate process. Lions, which is often known as Phase 1, 11 acres adjacent to the wastewater treatment center across the street from Donkey Creek Park. That property has gone through the closing process. The mayor will be signing this week and the Puyallup Tribe's check will be arriving this week. There's nothing holding it back. The seller has signed. So it's very exciting. It's not officially our property until the closing date, but that's just awaiting a check, really in a ceremonial kind of event, having the tribe contribute.
Is there
Very
going to be any event for that acquisition?
There will be, and I'm glad you asked, and the commission might like to have a role in having public events like that. But yes, the Lyons family particularly is really excited to come back from the East Coast and to revisit the property. The tribe has indicated that they will come and do some kind of event. I don't want to suggest what it would be, but there will be a public event for Lyons. I think it'll
Fantastic.
be this summer.
Okay.
Adjacent to Lyons is Phase 2, 23 acres of property. Some of you are tracking closely. It's been under purchase sale agreement, and I thought I'd report to the commission so you know the process has been extended now to the end of June. What we're dealing with is differing values, and we hate to be negotiating on price. That's really not the city's interest in doing that. The issue is that the appraisals came in at different values. Typically one appraisal you agree, but when we did our appraisal, the owners of the property together said they'd like to do a second appraisal. They essentially declined, if you know real estate business. And so they did a second appraisal. And what we have to do is resolve not the best price, because that's just an endless task, but to figure out what value the property represents so that the county can put their funds into it. The city too is responsible to pay fair market value for property. That's something to keep in mind whenever we're thinking about parklands and acquiring land. We can't go get it for cheap. People can make donations, but we have to ensure that we don't force it and then essentially pay fair market value. So in this case, the county and the city both need to know what the property value is so that they can then justify putting public funds towards it. It's a sticky wicket. That's all I really want to say about that. But I'll tell you that the city and the mayor particularly has worked very hard to keep the sellers engaged and know how much we want the property. The council had pre-authorized a $7 million price tag, so I don't foresee it not happening. We put a purchase sale agreement in place that is for that amount of funds, and that's a big hurdle that's already been cleared. So you know Phase 3, if you're tracking, I'm sorry I didn't bring a map today, but that's a small piece of property on the other side of Harborview Drive, but also adjacent to Donkey Creek. It really is the buffer up to the Finhold neighborhood. That 5-acre parcel is going to the county for county grant assignment. So you've heard all about this. We're applying for grants. They are going to award, at least by the recommendation of their citizen advisory board and their executive, they're going to award our request for phase 3. That resolution is scheduled to take place on June 14th, I believe. I can get dates to those of you who really would like to know and even attend. But the county commission will vote to allocate the funds, and at that point, we'll be allowed to close. So what we're aiming to do is close on phase 2 and phase 3 at the end of June. And if that happens, you will have about a 50+ acre conservation area set aside right in the heart of downtown. And I want to
Fantastic.
thank you guys for your interest and passion over the years, and several of you wanting to do what you can. Stephanie stepped forward, and I will as well, to be a subcommittee to help me pursue grant funds, additional grant funds for the property. And I just appreciate that kind of enthusiasm. I am needing to let you ask questions, but I'm going to take the moment to say that the ambition to apply to RCO, you recall I asked you for your endorsement in a strategy. We proceeded and submitted 3 different draft grants. Council authorized it as well. And the response we got from our grant rep is very thoughtful and ultimately encouraging. But she talked about how in these pieces, it was a very challenging way to try to present for grant money. She talked about how if you're going to have a conservation area, you need to have it in total and not potentially larger and potentially this size and not know exactly what the implications of it will be. And ultimately, we decided that our application was not appropriate this grant cycle. But we can be reimbursed if we are so fortunate enough to secure the whole conservation area, and then we can reapply to RCO, which is the Recreation Conservation Office, in the 2-year cycle process, so that it would wait some time for reimbursement, but we would be more competitive then. So I wanted the commission to hear that we ultimately are not waiting now for RCO funding decisions this year and making presentations down in Olympia is what we used to do. That won't be happening for the conservation area. We're just going to work harder at getting it in place, getting a conservation easement on it, showing that we've done all the due diligence that's required in order to be competitive for a grant, including a cost estimate for the trail. There's an idea that we were going to put a trail across Lyons, and it's still a great idea, but it's truly not through engineering. And so I can't make a good application to the state and say, please help fund this trail. We have no idea what the cost is, and we don't know when we'll ever get to cross North Creek because that's a Department of Ecology review. You could already see why these applications would have been a challenge. We don't own the property that I was asking for acquisition money from. We're in negotiations, so it became premature to say, let's apply for state funding this cycle. I hope I've answered or anticipated some of your questions, but I stand here for anything you might like to know.
I think, we tried, and, I think we got a lot of good feedback, and I think in the future we stand a pretty good, with more concrete information, a better chance to, pursue those grant opportunities. So, kind of is what it is. So, yeah. All right. Well, I look forward to, hearing more about it in the future and seeing how this goes. I mean, it looks like we're still going to pursue the properties, and then just pursue the grants in retro. Is it, what do they call it? Retroactivity? Mm-hmm. Yeah. So, yeah.
And another fine example of the wheels of government grinding slowly, because each of these things has to take place in order, and they're obeying cycles that don't necessarily line up with our idea of things. And that's just the way it is. I think it's the right choice that it is premature. It's hard to imagine applying for a grant on property we don't own.
Yeah.
Yeah, we don't, well, plus we don't own it. We don't have a lease agreement. So I don't think that federal or state funds would be applicable. Yeah.
Gotcha.
Yep.
But we will. Yeah.
Yes, exactly.
Yes.
Love it. Thank you, Stephanie.
I was
Yes.
just looking back. I was like, I know I have that letter somewhere, because I wrote to the Lions in January 5th, 2019, kind of making a plea to them to, if they don't want to give the property to a nonprofit, work with some entity to keep it in a natural state. And we've accomplished that. So there we go.
Good
Atta
job.
girl, Stephanie, atta girl.
Well, I don't know, but at least maybe it planted a seed. I don't know.
But to have 50 acres right there of valuable ecological territory that's going to be more salmon friendly over time, has old growth cedars, important to the tribe, all the things, access back up to Cushman potentially. That's all of that is a fantastic outcome for open space in our community.
Yeah, for sure. And we already have ideas for using it and youth programming and all sorts of fun stuff. So looking forward to that.
Nice. I don't know if Matthew, you're ready to go on, or
No,
can you
no.
touch on the commercial fishing home port? Did that go through the third, that it says it went through the 30% design?
That's right. Terry, you might chime in too on this one, because I don't have a lot of background on the home port, but it is, there was a check-in with the fishermen. And so they gave some feedback on the early design, and it included things like how much electrical power should be on the dock. I guess trends keep changing and it's a higher ampage than we had anticipated, but we want to try to accommodate it so it can be as functional as possible. That's one of the issues. They were looking at the arrangement of what I guess are called the fingers off the dock as to the best placement. So they were getting really real about it, and how to best accommodate certain aspects. I don't know that I have a specific takeaway from that beyond just some design guidance.
And as far as I know that you said the fishing fleet provided some 30% design. Is it possible? I mean, safety is always a concern, with the kayak, dock right next door to that. So, I would hope that maybe the kayak team or somebody is able to give, additional feedback to you as far as the design and make sure it's not, gonna conflict with it. But it's, large vessels working next to, small vessels.
Thanks, Ben. Very good observation. Yeah.
Well, and Matthew, those were hard fought, long discussed options for what that dock arrangement should be like, on both the fisherman side and on the human powered craft side, and view lines and all kinds of parts of discussion, some technical and some emotional. And Ben is right. Thank you for saying that, Ben, that big boats and little boats don't get along very well. Some of those boats are being powered by 12-year-olds, that aren't really thinking about safety either, so it is important. And I would be distressed if the whole discussion of the dock went on without any input from the paddler side.
Thank you. I need to deliver that for you.
Well, and conversely, I agree with Louise. There's been a lot of conversation about this dual use and the best strategies for that. And I think in the design of the fisherman's dock, there are definitely ways to make it much easier for large boats to see little boats and little boats likewise. They do it all the time in the rest of the harbor. So I think it's a very mindful thing, but we absolutely cannot lose the fisherman's dock.
Right, I agree with that too. I'm not unhappy to be sharing the space, but it is still an area that has many needs, some of which conflict.
Yeah.
And there was a paddler's cup in the afternoon of the first day. They were doing the knockoffs, and so the kids are paddling towards shore, and then the fastest ones go back and try again until they weed it down to the winner. And the kids kind of went around, and they were off on the docked boats side of that space, and one of the sailboats pulled out right in front of a kid and truly nearly ran him down. Never did see him, but pulled out in the middle of an event and a race without letting any of the chase boats know or anything like that. I mean, and it's not like you couldn't tell that there was a major paddling event going on right in that space, but they never even indicated that they were wanting to pull their boat out, which we would have happily stopped the action and let that happen. So this is where people on the paddling community start getting concerned.
Yeah. Well, I think it's the sort of natural, I don't know, growth or change over time. If going from a working harbor to a recreational harbor, there's been this conflict for probably
Ever.
100 years on the water, but not quite at this level. So, yeah.
And other than that, I know the roundabout's getting close, so that means we should be getting the occupancy for Edinbot or the Eden house shortly, I hope.
Yes.
Yeah.
The only condition before opening Eden Brick House for any of those who, I hope you might all know about it, but it's a historic home that's been renovated by the city. It's right on the waterfront on Edinbot Park land. The only condition to it not being available to the public yet is the roundabout and parking. So the property is going to have enhanced parking, and some of you who may get down close to it can see you can almost see where the parking is going to be. It's for small events, the Eden House Brick House. It will be by a lease agreement managed by the Eden Boat Yard group. So that nonprofit has a lease and to be on city property, and they're doing programming. So the way the Brick House will work is that they'll use it for their own programming, but ensure that half of the days of the year are available for public opportunity to gather there, to use it, probably with reservation and a minimal fee. We actually had an inquiry, Terry and I, just today from a Girl Scout troop. Is there a place we can go? And we were able to say to them, that's likely the right size facility and ideally at a really minimal price. So yes, thanks for bringing it up, Ben. It's exciting that the city renovated the project. It's ADA accessible. It soon will have all its needed parking, and it will be able to open. The boat yard, I'm not quite using the right words, but boat house. Thank you. They will be occupying the second floor. If you were interested to know, there are potential offices there for them. And that one of their jobs is to track a historic tracking process of vessels in the harbor. It's kind of a neat thing that's going to happen. The just by happenstance, you reminded me, the Gig Harbor Boat Shop, they have an annual requirement to give a report of their activities. And that's something the commission could see, but of course it's a lease item. So it's kind of more the business of the city and of the council. It is going to the council, their annual report, on June 13th. If you wanted it on your agenda for your June meeting, I could share with you the Edinbot annual report.
All right. Might be worthwhile.
Yeah, Ben, you might give a little thought to the upcoming agenda. I don't mean to keep talking on this report should be over, but I'll just say that your agenda, one of the items I already know Josh has requested that we do some open meeting training, and he would like to attend on June 1st.
Okay.
I suspect you will have elections because you have graciously and Luis have graciously been the chair and vice chair in the interim period. But we need to start a new term for chair and vice chair. So I would say your elections are part of your next agenda. Just things I like to sprinkle.
Start filling in. Okay.
We might need to have future agenda on your agenda so that all commissioners feel like they can raise what they think is worthy of consideration. Because I know you have a chance for commissioners to give a report or comment at the end of this meeting, but there are good ideas, best practices about how you all can own your agenda, maybe by suggesting things and then even previewing a draft agenda.
All right.
And Matthew, did you need a volunteer for that summer committee?
Yeah, there's that climate change advisory board.
Yeah.
And I would like to know if there's interest, and if there's multiple interests, I probably would just do a random pick, but is it okay if I ask for a show of hands, or Luis, did you want to say you were interested? Ben's interested?
I actually can't on this one,
Sure.
between my vacation time and Metro Parks's budget process. I'm just swamped and I'm
Yeah.
sorry.
No problem. So Georgina and Ben are both interested. That's great service. I appreciate that. This again is focused on the comp plan. I can see if we can get both of you on, but do you want me to just do a random choice between the two of you? Like we could pick a number, or does one of you want to give it to the other?
Georgina would do a great job on it. You know, she's very passionate about these topics and stuff like that. So I would be happy to defer to her.
Super. Georgina, I hope you saw that schedule because we're going to take more of your time. You're on mute. You're muted, Georgina. We couldn't hear you.
Yes, so thank you, and if you can get both of us on, that would be great. Because I think Ben would like to be on it too. So.
Thank you, Luis, for doing some housekeeping for me.
Yeah, no problem. And it is an important topic. I just as a shocking number, I pay $500,000 in utilities for Metro Parks every month.
Wow.
Wow, every month?
Every month. It's real money. And remember that includes the zoo and but all the water, all the power, all the surface water, all the solid waste, it's a lot.
Yeah.
And so any sustainability measures can make an immediate impact to the bottom line. And that's taxpayer money. So it's good to save it and use it for something more interesting than surface water, payments.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, so let us know, Matthew. And if it's just one, that's fine. I'm happy for Regina
Thank you.
represent the Parks Commission on it. Anything else on your Parks Manager report?
I think the agenda already mentioned it, that the bike bash is occurring on the 21st of May. I won't be able to see most of you before then. So that's a Saturday activity that I plan to staff. Volunteers are welcome to join me. So you could let me know if you wanted to come for an hour or something. It's from 10 to 3 at Salmon Park. And it's a great day for mobility stuff. There'll be some bike rides, including, you might remember Marlene invited the commission to go on a bike ride. She's doing 3 different rides on the 21st, including one that shows her favorite route in and out of Tacoma. So that's ambitious. But she's going to take a morning ride to help people find the best route on Cushman to the bridge. Anyway, that's a bike bash day, the 21st at Samuel. The city will have a tent. I will be talking to people about how to use our Cushman Trail and ideally how to improve our mobility for bicyclists and walking and so forth, 10 to 3.
Yes. So is her intention to go find best route from Samuel Park to the Cushman? Is that what?
Yeah, I think that's part of her intent.
Okay.
And then she's ambitiously, I don't know how Marlene can do this. Maybe you guys know her and her energy level, but she has scheduled at one point how to get on the same day, the 21st, how to get from Samuel Park to the Puyallup Trail, the Foothills Trail. That's a distance. And she's going to ride people there to show you how to cross through Tacoma. I'd like to do that, but I would really need a lot of people staffing the booth for me. So I'm probably going to have to pass on that bike ride.
Knowing
Sounds-
Marlene, she will happily take you on a different day.
Thanks.
Yeah, she would be happy to, knowing Marlene.
Well, I'm glad we touched on this because you're thinking about your work program and mobility, access, trails, connectivity. These are all great goals. Remember, we're trying to introduce your work program to have some goals, not just activities, so that you can feel like you're working towards that. So keep in mind that these conversations are ideally helping you come up with in June on your agenda, some progress on the work program.
Good stuff. Good stuff. On to committee reports. I think we touched on the subcommittee on the grants. Is there anything else, Stephanie, you wanted to relay? I think we covered it pretty well.
Yeah, I think it's pretty straightforward.
Okay. And then barring that, and then I don't think the Arts Commission had anything new. I I know they probably issued their grants from their, did they issue their grants? I don't know, we'll have to get an update from Lynn Stevenson here. See if she's able to join us in the coming. How is that, Matthew? Do you know if there's, okay, if
I
there's
don't know if
opinion
Terry
one way
knows
or the
more
other?
about.
Ben,
Yeah.
are you talking about the Creative Endeavor grants?
Yeah,
Yeah, the contracts went out for that.
okay, so they did do that.
Stephanie,
the
are you in
honor-
a
does-
position to share something you're working on, or is that not what you want to talk about now? An arts initiative?
Yeah, I mean, basically, we're doing a project that is really related to a program we already have going, which is called the Collections Corner. And what we do is we take a few items out of the collection that we think are really cool, and we do the backstory, and they do a short video, and that gets posted on our website and on Facebook and stuff. It's a just kind of a behind the scenes in collections. So, you know, and it ranges. The last one they did was the periodic power block and how that kind of changed the whole face of fishing. We've done other ones on, oh gosh, all kinds of crazy stuff, from a dollhouse to some signs we have in the collection. You know, it's just really kind of random, but super fun. So we'll be doing that. And then we're also working on some additional videos that are longer, like one with Jake Busich on net mending and a few things like that. So that's the grant this year. Last year we did some window exhibits, and then you know, they also fund things like the Poetry in the Park, the project that Jen Chuskoff did that was really popular. So yeah, various things like that.
Sweet. Got to see those
On the-
programs, yeah, come
on-
into fruition. And sorry, Louise, go ahead.
On the art side, any update on the getting the honoring project into Austin?
Well, there's some big concrete blocks out there right now.
Yes, I see that. So they were compressing the soil so that the concrete, when it got poured, would be firmed up. We must be closer to the concrete pour, aren't we?
Yeah.
Terry, do you have that at your fingertips to know? There is a project schedule, but I don't have it committed.
I don't have the dates for it.
I believe, and there will be quite a public event and ceremony, but I believe it's aiming for the end of summer to install.
I'm eagerly awaiting it too. That's been a long time coming, and poor guy has been sitting in his wood carving shop for 2 years now. So
Yeah.
we're ready to have him.
Yep.
Is it in our, it's in our possession though? Isn't it at the Public Works facility? Yeah,
It's a
but yes,
situation, Ben. I can't tell you that.
Secret location.
the secret
Uh-huh.
location.
Yeah.
Yes. Probably sitting in the mayor's backyard or something. Okay, any other on the public comment? Terry, I didn't see anything submitted via email, right? You didn't send me anything for public comment?
No, we do have a couple of attendees
Sure.
that may wish to make public comment.
Yeah.
First, we have Councilmember Henderson.
Yeah, if anybody in the attendees would like to provide any public comment, now is the opportunity to do that. Feel free to raise your hand and then we'll get you unmuted. If you'd like to provide 3 minutes of comment, now is the opportunity to do that. And we'd be happy to have you provide comment for the Parks Commission. I'll give you just a few more seconds in case you do want to get your hand raised. If not, we're gonna wrap things up. All right, so go ahead and close the public comment. So just kind of recap, you know, welcome the new members coming to our next meeting. You know, happy to have you sit on this one and kind of, you know, get a lay of the land, I suppose, and what you're in for. We do keep fairly busy at our meetings, and, you know, we try to, you know, do meaningful work and feel like we're productive part of the community, and you know, that aspect. Keep in mind, we will be developing the work program over the next few months. So if you have the opportunity, feel free to revisit some of our past meetings or where we discussed this topic. to kind of get a better idea and grasp of what it is, but developing a vision of what the Parks Commission wants to set out to do and with as regards to the parks in our city, and how that can work in conjunction with the city council's strategic plan and the Parks and Recreation Open Space plan and the budget. And so all these things kind of work in conjunction with one another to develop our work program. So there's a lot to consider there for sure. There's the events that we discussed.
And I just wanted to make sure this other attendee didn't have public comment. Let me just double check.
Oh, yeah, sure.
I have an attendee listed as MLM. Did you have comments for us tonight? Okay,
All right.
thank you.
Yeah. Thanks for making sure that they had the opportunity. Sorry, kind of scooted over that. So work program, like I said, we're gonna do the elections for chair and vice chair, and formally welcome our new Parks Commission members, and be at a full commission again, which will be great.
I have just one thing that
Yeah.
don't know if this is appropriate or not, but Louise had sent us it's like an app, where we could go to a park and record our observations about maintenance and ideas or whatever. I was just wondering if we could have that on the agenda next month, so we're all very aware of it and how it works. And
It's a great idea.
Through it very quickly, and I think it's a great tool for all of us to have.
I think so too, especially coming into the summer season. Absolutely. When we be out and about and into the parks and stuff, I think that's a great idea too. So I'll make a note.
I can do a walkthrough on my screen so you can see it.
Great.
All right. All right. Anything else? If you feel like there's anything that you'd like to discuss at a future meeting and want on a future agenda item, feel free to email me, Matthew, or Terry, or talk at one of the meetings and say, hey, I'd like to discuss at a future meeting. We'll make sure to get that, appropriately scheduled. So your commission too. So yeah, I will entertain a motion to adjourn the meeting.
A second.
So I will, Georgina will move and I will second. All in favor of adjourning the meeting this evening, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Nope. All right, meeting adjourned. I will see you all in a month, if not sooner, at the open house.
So kind
Thanks
of you
so much.
guys to listen to me go on. Thank you.
Yeah.
Bye, everybody.
Bye. Thank you. Have a good night.
Thanks a lot.
Good night.
Thanks for including me. Appreciate it.
Yeah,
Yeah,
absolutely.
thanks.
Thanks, guys.
You bet.